In this video, we're going to cover the starter replacement in a 2005 Mazda 6 six-cylinder 3.0. If you're watching this video, you're probably trying to figure out if this is a job you want to tackle or not, and it's really not that bad. I'll walk you through the entire process, and I will show you every tool that you will need. So, let's get started. Okay, so step one is to remove the negative and positive battery terminals. You'll need a 12mm wrench. Step 2 is to remove the battery bracket. You'll need a 10mm socket and a 10mm wrench. Now, little tricks, once you get the bolt out, you can pick up on the bracket, push down on the other side, and sometimes you can just get the hook to come out, just like so. So next you're going to want to remove the battery, followed by the battery tray. Now for this you'll need that same 10mm socket, but this time you'll need an extension. With the battery box gone, you can actually see the top of the starter motor. This device right here is the solenoid. So the next thing we're going to do is disconnect the power. So you're going to pop this little protective cover off, and then you're going to take the nut off. I think it's a 14mm. Now this is your main starter power line. Alright, to make our life a little easier, we're going to remove a bracket. That bracket holds this wiring harness and it sits on top of the starter. So there's two screws. There's one here, it's an 8mm, and there's another one right there. Alright, see, I can wiggle it now. But there's one other piece of plastic here, hold this corrugated tubing, just flip it back and pull the harness out. Okay, so now that the starter motor is exposed, let's take a look at our new starter motor. So this will give you hints here. So there's two holes on top here, that's where the bolts go. On the bottom here, you're going to have two dowel pins that will hold the starter in place while you remove or install it. So to remove the bolts, we're going to use a 1/2 inch drive for a 13mm to a short extension to a universal joint to a long extension. So we're going to go for the back one near the firewall first, and I recommend using your camera, your iPhone camera, to guide you in. So I'm on the bolt here, and they're really not too bad to get to. I recommend removing it, finish removing it by hand so you don't drop it. Now on the front one here, I really recommend this. It's a great way to get to it. So under the throttle body here, there's a hose. It'll loop around in a U. If you go between that hose, you have direct access to the bolt that's toward the front of the car. Alright, so now we got the wiring harness out of the way, we got the bolts out, let's try to get the starter out. Okay, so as I was trying to get the starter out, it wedged itself in between the wiring harness and this bracket. It's actually the transmission dipstick. So there's two little bolts. They look like they're 10mm. So we're going to remove both of those, and then that way it'll give us, we can move the dipstick over and it'll give us a little bit of space. Yeah, see, we got a lot of play now. We can get that bracket out of the way, and the starter comes right out. Alright, so now that we have it out, let's go ahead and compare the two. Make sure you have the same starter, because depending on if you have a 4-cylinder, a 6-cylinder, a straight drive, or a automatic, you'll have different motors, different starter motors. Alright, so this is where the starter goes. You can actually see the flywheel, you can see where the bolts go and where everything goes. So let's do everything in reverse and get the new one in there. Okay, here we go. First start with the new starter.
What is your major malfunction?
You lose! Good day, sir!
Okay, so things didn't quite go as expected. which is actually often the case with cars. So I came back and I checked my fuses, my relays, the voltage, everything. That's when I grabbed this wire and it was hot. This is the negative battery cable. So I took it off and there's so much corrosion. There's no way current was getting through this. I mean, it is just, it's still coming out. Just, yeah, look at the corrosion on that. That's gonna have to be cleaned up. Fingers crossed. Please, please, please. Look at that. Woo! Well, the video didn't quite go as expected, but hey, you learned how to put a starter into a Mazda 6, and you also learned how to troubleshoot if that new starter doesn't work. So, hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe.